We got some stunning and breaking news this Labor Day Monday. It took a federal judge, Sparkle Suknanen, in the District of Columbia, 13 separate orders over the last 24 hours to force the Trump administration to deplane 600 migrant unaccompanied minors, 600 children who were in a refugee resettlement program were loaded onto planes by the Trump administration without any adults around, without any lawyers involved, at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday in order to send them back to Guatemala and revoke their status as refugees. Think about that. This not only violated due process, as the judge determined very quickly, but also violated their rights under child trafficking laws. America, the government, violating child trafficking laws. I'll cover it all right here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Fast-moving story, so fast-moving, I stayed up till midnight to continue to watch the docket in this case to see the new filings by the government required by Judge Suknanen. And I want to tell you a lot about Sparkle Suknanen, because when you hear the judge it's been assigned, you're going to see she's the right judge for the job. Let's start with how we got here. There is a refugee resettlement program. These 600 children, some as young as 5 and 6 years old. The 10 plaintiffs in the case are between 10 and 17. Their parents or they got themselves here to America to be resettled. This isn't a trip to Disney World or Disneyland. This is for them to avoid abuse, torture, and the rest in Guatemala. So the Trump administration, who does not adhere to any due process in any of their immigration proceedings, this is not the first case. This is not the first case this weekend in which a federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from denying due process to migrants and immigrants. It's the second one. But in this one, immigration rights advocates were ready, tipped off by the children. So they rushed into action as soon as they heard about the planes at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And by the way, nothing says I know I'm doing something illegal and unconstitutional like the Trump administration loading planes of children in the early wee hours of the morning. You know, do it in the sunshine so we all can see. Put it on the presidential daily schedule so we know what's happening. How about that? No, they know they're doing something unconstitutional, and they hope they're not going to get caught, and they'll get these children away before a federal judge can exert jurisdiction. That's their goal. They tried it already with the 200 people they sent to El Salvador, including Abrego Garcia, all to be tortured upon arrival. Same thing could happen here with these children. So advocates rush into action. They file a complaint, an emergency complaint for injunctive relief and a temporary restraining order. The judge sets the hearing for yesterday at 3 p.m. She then gets word from the plaintiff's lawyers that the children are already on the plane and some have departed. She moves the hearing up to 12:30. She issues a temporary restraining order, one of 2 that she issues in the morning. First, she enters it for the 10 plaintiffs to be grounded and get off those planes. She then does it for a certified class or temporarily certified class of 600, which is everybody that was on the planes at 1 o'clock in the morning in this all the Guatemalan children who are on these planes, part of the refugee resettlement program. They are part of the class. Now that's what she's protecting. Okay. So now I said there were 13 orders that were issued in the span of less than 24 hours by this judge. Let me tell you about the judge first, then we'll get to the orders, and I'll read to you from the complaint. Sparkle Suknanen was appointed by Joe Biden. Her entire career, the bulk of her career, was in leadership positions at the Department of Justice. She was the number 2 or number 3 in the Civil Rights Division. She was the number 2 or number 3 in the Appellate Division. She knows her way around the Department of Justice. In fact, the lawyer that appeared in front of her, Drew Ensign, for Trump, I believe had to have reported to her. She was superior to him then. Of course, she's superior to him now as a federal judge. She is an immigrant herself. Her family came from Trinidad and Tobago. She is a Horatio Alger up from your bootstrap story. You know, put her way through college, put her way through law school, top scholar, federal law clerk twice. And she was a clerk for Justice Sotomayor in the United States Supreme Court. She's been a judge for less than a year, but by these 13 orders, she knows what she's doing. The complaint Let me read to you from the complaint, which brings counts against the Trump administration for violation of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Think about that. The government has violated, according to the complaint and the judge finding on temporary restraining order grounds, the Trafficking Victim and Protection Act. Also the Equal Protection Clause of the Fifth Amendment, the Due Process Clause, statutes about asylum, which is what they're ultimately seeking, and also about torture. Our own government is being accused of violating statutes to protect children from torture. Let's continue. Here we go. Recognizing this is on page 1 of the complaint that was filed. Plaintiffs are 10 unaccompanied minors from Guatemala, the defendants are seeking to remove from the United States in clear violation of the unambiguous protections that Congress provided them as vulnerable children. Recognizing their unique vulnerability, Congress has created a special statutory scheme to ensure that unaccompanied minors receive enhanced protection and care whenever the government seeks to remove them from the United States. They need to have an adult that's been designated for them to protect their interest in court, and of course, access to counsel. Soon as this group found out about their status being removed from them, they leapt into action and filed their suit. Now, let me talk about the 13 different orders, and you're going to see here how pissed off the judge is. I'm going to read to you from just the docket. This is all from yesterday. First, the judge enters a temporary restraining order, finding that they have more likely than not proved all the elements of a temporary restraining order. They say that the defendant shall not remove any of the plaintiffs from the United States for 14 days, signed Sparkle Suknanen. Then she schedules the hearing for 3. Then she moves the hearing up to 12:30 because she's been told that they're already putting children on planes, which of course she did not like. She then enters an order to ensure that none of the children are removed, including 600 of them. Here's what she says. Given the exigent circumstances, the court has determined that an immediate order is warranted to maintain the status quo. The putative class, the court orders that the defendants cease any ongoing efforts to transfer, repatriate, remove, or otherwise facilitate the transport of any plaintiff or member of the putative class from the United States. The putative class, which means she hasn't yet certified the class of people that are protected, but it's defined for now as all Guatemalan unaccompanied minors in the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement as of 1:02 a.m. on August 31st, 2025. She then enters another order to requiring that a status report be issued by the government by 4 p.m. about the current status of all of these children. Then they blow the deadline. The government blows the deadline. And so then she enters an order to show cause, which is next level up for a judge to discipline a party that's been non-compliant or moving towards contempt. And she says, you better file it by 6:30. At 6:30, they finally get around to filing it. They claim they didn't file it earlier because they hadn't made an appearance. That's not a proper response. They say in this first of 4 status reports that the judge required them to enter, they say defendants hereby give notice that all of the class members that were on planes today have been deplaned and are in the process of being returned to the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And we'll give complete updates later. Now, let me talk about Drew Ensign for a minute before I get to the other orders in this case. Drew Ensign is a liar. Let me just call it out. He's been accused of being a liar by people who worked in the Department of Justice in a whistleblower complaint that he lied to judges like Judge Boasberg about Abrego Garcia, Judge Boasberg about the 200 people who were sent to El Salvador, Judge Zinnes about Abrego Garcia. He cannot be trusted. He fired people that told the truth. And so no federal judge really trusts somebody like Drew Ensign. And in any other administration, he would be so burnt in terms of credibility that he'd be removed from his job. He would not be trotted out again to yet another judge about people being unlawfully sent in planes to other countries without due process, which is exactly what we have again here, except it's worse. These are children, and the violations are alleged are about torture and trafficking of children. So he's not the right guy to carry the water for the United States government, but there's no choice. Who else is around? They have a very thin bench, if you know what I mean. So he says to the judge during the hearing that this isn't about removal without due process, Your Honor. We're reunifying families. Talk about Orwell. Ripping children out of a refugee resettlement program, putting them on planes without accompanying adults or without any due process is now seen as reunifying families. I'm going to continue to do reporting. I want to find out what Guatemala was promised or threatened with by the Trump administration in order to convince those parents to say out loud that they want the children back when they put them in the refugee status to begin with. What is it? We lowered the tariffs again? Some sort of financial incentive? We're paying money for them to house these kids? Something is happening. And I'm going to get to the bottom of it. But let me continue with the minute orders. So the judge didn't like that status report at all. So the judge ordered, here's the minute. After she read that, minutes later, she entered another minute order. There's 13 of them. She said in light of the defendant's status report, the court orders the defendants to file a further status report by 8:30 p.m. last night Eastern Time. The report should address whether all putative class members are in the Office of Refugee Resettlement custody. If they're not, then advise when they will be. Signed, Sparkle Suknanen. So then they file their second status report, this time by 8:30. That one says the following. Of the putative class members at issue, and there's 600 of them, so this isn't even sufficient. 16 have been returned to ORR custody, back to custody. 56 are expected to in the next hour, and 4 are expected to by 10:30. The judge read that, and she entered another order. She said, in light of that status report, the court orders another status report by 10:45. She then set a briefing schedule, which is going to time out for a hearing on the 10th of September. Meantime, the children are grounded. They're in protective status custody with the judge overseeing it. The third status report comes in, this one at 10:45. Third status report says, defendants hereby provide notice that all but 4 of the putative class members. Are they like losing children now? All but 4 have been returned to custody. Transfer of the remaining 4 is expected to be completed at approximately 11 p.m. In addition, one minor that is likely a member of the putative class, remember, that's everybody on these planes at 1 o'clock in the morning, who is not placed on the planes, was issued a voluntary departure order and is expected to be placed in custody sometime tomorrow. Good job, Drew. Then the judge gets that and says that in light of the defendant, this is the judge now, at 11 o'clock at night last night. In light of the defendant's status report, the court orders the defendants to file a further status report notifying this court when all putative class members are returned. So then last night after midnight, or before midnight, they file a supplemental 4th status report, which says defendants hereby provide notice that 3 of the 4 minor aliens that was discussed in their 3rd status report have now been returned. The final one is expected to be returned in approximately 3 hours, and they'll file an additional report this morning. I mean, this is where we are. So what does it mean? And I'll be posting all of this on Legal AF Substack. So what does all of this mean? It means there's going to be a hearing on the 10th of September in front of Judge Suknanen with all of the briefing completed and with all of his evidence put before her. She's already found, as a matter of law, as of right now, that the plaintiffs will most likely win their case about the violation of the child trafficking laws, about the violation of the torture laws, about the violation of due process. And all of these arguments that they've made, the Department of Justice has made in front of her, are not flying. We're just putting families back together, Your Honor, by sending them back to Guatemala. It's a pilot program, he said at one point, Drew Ensign. Not going to work. But it's going to be the same Drew Ensign making these arguments again. So I think we're going to have a preliminary injunction issued by Judge Suknanen on the 10th of September thereafter. The children are apparently safe and sound, or at least safe, or at least off planes in the United States. And between now and then, there's nothing the Trump administration can do until there's at least they could try to take an appeal of a temporary restraining order, but most appellate courts say there's no jurisdiction for that. So I'm not sure they're going to do exactly that at all. I think instead you're going to see this hearing, and then she's going to make a ruling, and then whoever's the loser will take their appeal. And not everything in the immigration world is the Trump administration appealing. Sometimes they're not appealing at all. So we got to start with judges like Judge Suknanen, and then get a win at the first level of appeal, and then see if Donald Trump blinks and folds, which is what he's been doing more and more in some of these cases. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Check out all the filings that I discussed on this hot take on the Legal AF Substack. Until my next report, it's Michael. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.